Good evening and welcome to tonight's program, Green Goddess and Watergate and More, Funky Foods of the 1970s, presented by Amy Alicio. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rachel Blomquist, librarian at the Putnam County Public Library District. Before we begin, I just have a quick announcement. Slides share there. On Tuesday, August 18th at 3 p.m. Central, please join us for a live virtual guided tour of the National Constitution Center's newest exhibit, America's Founding. To register, you can scan the QR code on the screen or go to our Facebook page or website to get the link. And it is now my pleasure to welcome Amy Alicio. Amy is an award-winning librarian and author of the Amazon best-selling Elena O'Neill mystery series featuring vintage recipes. She has given over 300 presentations to libraries and groups on vintage cooking and crafts. Amy?
Thanks so much, Rachel. I'm so excited to be joining the Putnam County Library this evening, and I know some of you are in person, and some of you, I recognize the names of some of you who are joining us in online this evening. Let me just get the sharing going tonight. And let me get that started. All right, Rachel, does that look right?
Yes.
All right. So tonight we are going to talk about foods from the 70s. And as Rachel said, I was a librarian for 20 years. Now I work as on content creation, but I miss talking to folks about vintage recipes. And I had a collection of 2,000 vintage cookbooks and a blog for 12 years. And what I do is I talk to folks about the humorous, nostalgic recipes and the truth according to the vintage cookbooks. So, are these perfectly historically accurate food education in my talks? No, they are things that come out of the cookbooks, and you're all going to get recipes. Rachel is extremely organized and connected that to the folks who signed up for the show, and also they'll be connected to the recording. And also, Putnam County kindly hired me to talk about fall flavors on September 29th. So, in addition to the great program she talked about, I will also be back in September to talk about fall flavors. So, what kind of recipes can we talk about from the 70s? I put cookbook covers for my collection of two of my favorite trends from the 70s. I was born in the 70s, and I won't say what year, but it was early on in the decade. But also, some of my favorite food trends that have lasted on to modern times were crepes, and certainly those are still very popular right now, and fondue. And there's the Melting Pot restaurant up in the Chicago area that is very popular for fondue, and they may not use a pot that looks like that anymore with a lighted fire underneath it, but definitely some fun variations. So we're going to talk about some of the recipes that were mentioned in trends in these cookbooks and how we can translate them to perhaps safer and better recipes that we can use today. So from foodtimeline.org, some of the trends from recipes in the 70s were family meals. Certainly that's the same as today. Party menus, picnics, July 4th bicentennial feasts. It's a great talk to give this year because we have another anniversary for our country, right? So it's not 200 years like it was in the 70s. Now it's 250. Thanksgiving menus, Christmas menus, New Year parties. Certainly those recipes are still popular. School lunchbox suggestions. The ones that are mentioned in the 70s, I don't believe were popular even in the 70s. And they are pretty funny, the ones mentioned in those cookbooks. New products, and we'll talk about what was new in the 70s and popular American brands. And let's move on. I'll definitely answer questions at the end too, or if you want to chime in the chat, say I made that, or I had that recipe, or I had a better variation. Go ahead, chime in with your favorite recipe things. I love talking about that kind of stuff either at the end, or if you want to jump in and say, hey, I did that. Feel free to interrupt me too. I told Rachel I don't mind being interrupted. I did teen programs for 20 years. I am used to being interrupted, so feel free. All right, brands from the 70s. Some I put photos of some that you might recognize, but also from foodtimeline.org. 1970 brought us Orville Redenbacher's gourmet popping corn. And I don't think it was microwave in 1970, but it did start bringing us the variation of that. Some other ones, we had famous Amos's chocolate chip cookies in 1975, and there's a picture of him there. he lost the right to use his name to that company after he sold it, and he started selling doing companies under other names all the way until when he passed away. Twix cookie bars came out in 1977. Ben and Jerry's 1978. Whatchamacallit came out in 1978 also. And other ones. Oh, Blow Pop. I can't remember what year I have there. I have Pop Rocks from 1976. Those are still popular. And Blow Pop was the most popular candy from the Charms Company ever that came out for that one. So some of the popular 70s brands that are still around. Plenty of things that are not still around from the 70s. See if I can find one. There was frozen Swiss fondue that came out. There were things that Burger King had Have It Your Way, which we don't, that was popular. That is no more. There was McCormick's light gravy. I don't know that there's a light version of that gravy anymore, but certainly some of those trends have morphed into other things. All right. Oh my goodness. I have a spelling error. And I looked at these slides over and over to get ready for today, and inevitably there's going to be a spelling error on there, but okay. So I have grasshoppers. It's supposed to have two S's on here. So grasshopper pie was very big in the 60s. And it was made with alcohol. It was one of those recipes. And there were different versions of it in my cookbooks with and without alcohol. I find it in every cookbook I have on desserts in the 60s, from Betty Crocker's Pie and Pastry Cookbook. Not only was this a symbol of things that had alcohol in it, because I found it in a lot of what I call singles cookbooks. There was one I had that referred to it as a man catching recipe, which I thought was pretty funny that it had alcohol in it. But also, it's one of the first times that we see the cookie crust pie crumb uh, made out of cookie crumbs, that the first time that we really see that. And so this is from Betty Crocker's Pie and Pastry Cookbook, 1968, and you see a picture of it there. That one does have the creme de menthe in it. Certainly it can be made without it, though. You see a lot of versions of this now that just have food coloring in it. It doesn't have to have the alcohol. This one is made out of marshmallows. It's got chilled whipping cream in it. You can do a lot of different versions of it with mint. See this one at St. Patrick's Day a lot. What I liked is that I also had a version of my cookbooks from 1971 that had grasshopper cake. It was trying to continue the trend into the 70s, although this one is way harder than it needs to be. That's an ongoing theme in my vintage cookbooks, even with the limited tools they had back then. Obviously, they weren't going to pop anything in the air fryer or the microwave in the 70s, but they still made things way harder than they needed to be. And they made things fancier. Now that trend is still around. If we watch on the Food Network, you think, why are they making things so hard for those competitions? They could have done things much easier. That is the case here too. From the Better Homes and Gardens Make Ahead cookbook, that's a trend from the 70s. More and more people in the workforce, especially the women, they are trying to make things faster and easier. This one says the cake is meant to eliminate last minute hostess duties, and yet it's incredibly hard and time consuming. Okay, it's got like I think it's got 12 ingredients, so that would not eliminate much time for me. So it had unsweetened chocolate, boiling water, sugar, sifted cake flour. Can you automatically tell me where the sifter is in your house without thinking about it? Do you know exactly where it is? I don't know where mine is. Sugar, baking powder, salt, salad oil in the cake, and we know that a lot of recipes have that in their cake. 7 egg yolks, vanilla, 7 egg whites. At least they're using both of them, and half a teaspoon of cream of tartar. So it's blend together. It's got sifting together. It's got the different um, multiple steps. Let's see, one, two, I'm counting 15 steps here. And then cool overnight and from an inverted pan. Next morning, remove the cake from the pan, split crosswise into 3 layers. Okay, so you're not making 3 layers. You are splitting an inverted cake like an angel food cake into 3 layers. How is this saving you time as a hostess is what I want to know. Be much easier to make the 3 layers. It does look delicious too. My advice is make a 2 layer cake. Take vanilla frosting, dye it green, add some mint flavoring to it, then you have your grasshopper cake. In this case, they wanted you to make homemade frosting also because, apparently that also makes it easier for yourself as a hostess. Soften 1 envelope of unflavored gelatin, add a quarter cup of cold water, add creme de menthe. Yeah, let's add some alcohol in there. And then fold gelatin mixture into Cool Whip. No need. It certainly makes a beautiful cake, though, and would be lovely, but is not going to save you any time at all to use the vintage recipe. But you can certainly adapt that. There's Harvey Wallbanger. Again, a trend from, using the alcohol in the recipes. This one, the cake recipe, I find amusing for a lot of reasons. It's from a church cookbook. It uses a ton of alcohol. I definitely wouldn't want to put that in my oven without having an extinguisher nearby. It does sound good. I would make variations on it. But let's talk about the history of this drink. First of all, it certainly looks pretty. From New Ways to Greet the Cocktail Hour from House Beautiful, October 1970. The public taste is swinging away from the ultra dry, palate numbing drinks to cocktails with more emphatic flavors. Favorite drinks still may vary with the region, but a House Beautiful survey of bars and well known clubs and restaurants around the country indicates that more tasty cocktails are being ordered everywhere. The professional barmen credit the new drink preferences to the influence of women who often don't like astringent cocktails and of young people who create their own drinks in a freehand style. Okay, I'm not sure that that's true. I just thought it was funny. Today's young drinkers are drinking more types of cocktails with a greater variety of spirits mixed into them. Today's new drink innovators are California's young surfers. I do think young people maybe drive some drink trends, and certainly the advertisers reach out to the young people. I'm not sure that they come from the surfers. I'm not sure how well you could surf when you would be drunk, but certainly I thought that article was kind of amusing. So here it talked about how Harvey Wallbanger was becoming more popular. And there was a recipe for it. I have a card. This were card recipes and for cocktails. And in the vintage collections, and you see a lot of these on eBay, you can find some very fun kind of glassware, some Bakelite cocktail stirs, a lot of fun things that people maybe don't collect as much anymore. People don't want them taking up space. They're fun to look at. Maybe you don't want them taking up space in your house or to collect them. But let's look at the cake in the church cookbook. So Harvey Wallbanger cake certainly looks beautiful, doesn't it? It looks like a nice golden pound cake with a lovely glaze on it. So we've got yellow cake mix, instant vanilla pudding. So far, so good, right? Eggs, cooking oil, orange juice, 2 ounces of vodka, 2 ounces of Neapolitan liquor. I'm not familiar with Neapolitan liquor. I don't drink. That might be part of the problem. I might have the occasional wine or wine tasting. Beat all for 4 minutes and pour into angel food cake pan, or it must be pound food. I don't know. I cut that one off. So it was some kind of food cake pan, and then you add a glaze over it. That's a lot of alcohol for a cake. I bet you could make a lovely pound cake, and you probably still could have a little bit of alcohol for flavoring in there. That seems like a lot, though. The orange juice sounds really good with the vanilla pudding. Might make a lovely pound cake. Maybe there's a variation you can make. But there are other varieties of cakes from the 70s, and this is the one that people most remember from that era. So why was it called the Watergate cake? Um, First of all, I see a variation of this salad in every single vintage cookbook from the 60s through the 70s, called so many different things. They called it Watergate at that time because it was what people were talking about at the cocktail parties. What would we call salads now? What kind of scandal would we tie it to now? We'd have to call it something different every week or every month now, right? Because people are learning and talking about things faster on their phones. But I've seen it called Hawaiian salad. I've seen it called all kinds of things. But the pistachio jello pudding was coming out at this time also. So then we saw a whole lot more green recipes. So I really think that kind of influenced where this came from and it became associated with this. So the Watergate scandal is what people were talking about the party. So then people brought in the Watergate salad. The version that really seems to be popular from this era had marshmallows, bananas, and nuts, and covered up with marshmallow flow. Now, remember, this is called salad. And I joke about that, but my family does not consider it Thanksgiving unless we have the quote salad that's made out of red jello, uh, cream cheese, pretzels. Uh, yeah, there is nothing of nutritional value in there. And yet we always eat it as a salad side dish and not as a dessert. So everybody has their own version of jello salad. And this was the Watergate salad. I've seen it many variations, especially in church cookbooks, called different things. And I do like how the picture there has a cherry in the middle of it. And then on the right, there was something called Watergate cake. And my mother had a handwritten recipe of this called a pistachio pudding cake that she used to make for St. Patrick's Day every year. And it was a lot easier to make than that grasshopper cake, I'll tell you that. And even with the 4 layers, they made this one with 2 layers and cut each of those in half. And they had pistachio decoration around. It was made with the pistachio pudding jello, pistachio jello pudding. And it's also the salad had pineapple in it a lot of times also. So different versions of it. And a lot of people tell me they loved pistachio cake or pistachio pudding, and I always ask them what was in it. And it's always something different. So what was in your version of it that you enjoyed if you had it? So feel free to write things in the chat. So the centennial from 1976. I pulled together a few pictures of things that were popular then, and I do have a bicentennial cookbook that has nothing unique to that era in it. It has the usual church cookbook fare, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love those recipes, but certainly nothing unusual. It has the usual like taco casserole, hamburger casserole that I always find in the church cookbooks that I love to make. Actually, I'm not dissing that. But some of the things that were kind of funny from that era is it says even Barbie has a great Betsy Ross dress for the bicentennial. I don't know that there was a Barbie 250 dress. I should have looked that up. McDonald's had red, white, and blue shakes. I don't think they came out with anything like that this year. I don't know that a blue shake would have been that appealing. Maybe they have like blue slushies or something now. And then they had the little bananas treats, and I have seen variations of that online as recipes suggested for this year for the 250th. From Great American Picnics, Red Book, July 1976. Whether it's a simple backyard party or the lavish frolics held in the early 19th century, the picnic is an American institution. It is as traditional to the 4th of July as the illuminations, the fireworks. The idyllic scene opposite has all the ingredients for a happy outing. I had a picture of a picnic, whatever century you're in. Baskets of good food and wine, children, music, and a lovely landscape. A few flowering flirtations and possibly uninvited aunts. It says the no recipe picnic can be as ambitious or fussless as you like. Carry crystal stemware or paper cups, spread out on a blue linen cloth, or use the grass as a backdrop. Okay, doesn't sound so bad, right? Sounds kind of like Ravinia, if you've been up to there with the crystal stemware. I know people go all out sometimes for concerts in the park too in different communities. I don't know about the crystal stemware at a picnic. And also the menus they suggested included a whole turkey, one of them. That seems like it would be heavy to bring on the picnics, but most people enjoy having some sort of sandwiches or different things at the picnics. It can be fancy or however you like it for the fireworks festivals. And how about other celebrations in the 70s? So here's a cookbook. And this used to happen at the library a lot when I was giving a lot of these talks more and I worked at the library. People would send me all the time. There would be cookbooks sent to me through interlibrary loan, and people would just put my name on them. I never know where they came from, and I loved it. I don't know how many copies of Strange Elvis cookbooks arrived on my desk all the time. And even if it didn't have my name on it, if a weird cookbook arrived, the staff always knew where it needed to go. Okay. So the 1976 gem arrived on my desk was a Nancy Drew cookbook, Clues to Good Cooking. If you look on that, we can tell it's from the 70s from the color palette, right? And I'm sitting in a room with wood paneling, by the way, also because my house is from that era. But definitely that is too. And we can also tell from the menu on there that this is from the at least the late 60s, early 70s because of the size of that steak and that ham. What I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it is a piece of meat that we don't eat the size of anymore, for sure. And so this had a Father's Day menu because Nancy, of course, her relationship with her father was a big part of those books. And it was a Father's Day menu, and it said Nancy shares her holiday secrets. So for Father's Day, she suggested that you serve shrimp cocktail. Now think about the fancy picnic. And so now Father's Day, she's gonna, it's even fancier. Attorney shrimp sauce, steak tossed salad with Roquefort dressing, French fries, onion rings, and chocolate riddle. So apparently Dad is not into vegetables. That's fair enough. The tossed salad with dressing gets close. And so chocolate riddle has 5 large eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa, 1 pint of heavy whipping cream. Dad is not into healthy eating. Half a teaspoon of vanilla flavoring and a heaping teaspoon of sugar. I do love it when they say heaping or generous. So it says break the eggs, putting the yolk in a mixing bowl and the whites in the other. Beat the egg whites, fold in the white. This is typical baking instructions. Um, so this one, you cover with a clean, moist dish towel until thoroughly cooled. And then this is a jelly roll, is what this is, chocolate riddle. It was a riddle to me, and I had to read the instructions multiple times to understand it. And then you sprinkle sprinkles over the whole thing. So it's incredibly complicated the way it's described, and much more so than it needs to be. But that was quite the riddle for people making that recipe. But all right, 1973. I do have quite a few Jello recipes in here. Just because there were a couple different Jello trends from the 70s. And so this one, they were always trying to show that Jello was popular for whatever the trend was for those decades, and certainly cocktail parties. Still big in the late 60s, early 70s. Really like this picture for a lot of reasons. This is one of the few cookbooks I have from this era that showed diverse people, which I loved. I was so happy to see that here. And they also have a diverse wedding picture in the same era. And so here they have a buffet and they have people eating some of the parfaits. And what I always enjoy about this photo is that they all have food in their hands, but none of the food on the table has been touched. So no servings are out of there. So, food photography is not as sophisticated as it is now. Perhaps there's another buffet table that we can't see, but you see the parfait glasses there are black and white. So what flavor of Jello is solid black, you might wonder. And it is the Topaz Parfait. It is coffee, Jello, rum, brown sugar, and lemon. Uh, that might be something you would be interested in. I'm more interested in like the cherry parfait Jello pie that's in the middle. Certainly a fun flavor, but they want to show a variety. And they have like a sort of trifle that I think that does have some cake in it, the one on the left there. And they also have a version of salmon that they mentioned for this party also with the Jello. And cheese logs and ball. There's a variety of cheese logs in every decade, and it goes way back. I have recipes from the 30s where they are making cheese snowmen at their holiday recipes. So every decade seems to have a different way to do it. This one goes for the time-saving recipes. So I do like the mini cocktail sausages that are stuck into oranges for holiday parties. That is another, or grapefruits maybe, because that looks bigger. There's always an interesting way to do it. And look at the Ideals Christmas Cookbook from 1978, I believe that one is. They cut out bows out of red peppers and put them on top, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. It is heavily covered with parsley, though, so it might be a little harder to dip or get a nice serving out of that one. And they try to get more elaborate or have different or more interesting ingredients in the different cheese logs of each era. And this one had cream cheese, blue cheese, and that's pretty normal you find in your cheese logs. It has coconut, grated onion, Worcester sauce, more coconut, and a cup of minced parsley. Now that is a lot of parsley, and that is probably how we get that dense green. And it looks good on the cover there. I am not sure how tasty that would be, but certainly it's fun to try different variations of the normal cheese log, and everybody likes to see different cheeses or things like that at a party, something different. What I have found is when I go to author parties or other things, people are always oddly asking me ahead of time which vintage dish I'm going to take. And I never like to say. I usually, when I go to a party, people are like, oh, which dish did you bring? And then I just point to somebody else. All right, school lunches. Pack and carry sandwiches from 1973 says 9 times out of 10, the mainstay of a lunchbox or picnic is sandwiches. So don't let yours be humdrum. Vary them from day to day with new fillings and new breads. It's an easy matter to keep hearty sandwiches on hand in the freezer. Always a great idea to vary lunches, right? Those of us who bring our lunches to work to save money, great to vary them. And we can see the school lunches here are pretty elaborate. Maybe not what is served now, although my son's high school had its own cafe with like boba and smoothies, or they have different stations. making fancy things now. So, I used to make fun of this a lot more, but now I see high schools maybe have fancier things. This one had oven fried chicken on the 12th. It has pizza regularly. That is kind of like what I remember from my high school is that we alternated between pizza and fries and like fish sticks and cheeseburgers and stuff. Those were like the four food groups that were served. That seems like what this school offered. But the Good Housekeeping cookbook suggested to vary school lunches that you slip salad dressing into your sandwiches to serve to make them more interesting. So if you have a sliced bologna sandwich, that you add coleslaw and salad dressing. If you have chopped chicken or turkey, apple, and celery, and actually both of those sound pretty good, that you pour salad dressing on top. It does not tell you what type of salad dressing. You maybe can see what would go with those flavors. If you have chopped chicken, walnuts, and olives, which again sounds delicious on its own, then you add some sort of salad dressing. So I did just enjoy the elementary school a menu that they had there, so I couldn't resist adding that. Although I would have loved to have seen a picture of salad dressing poured on one of those sandwiches, but oddly enough, they did not provide that. And I found this was a elementary school cookbook, and I think those are always fun to look at, and I do love that it included illustrations. This was typed and handwritten recipes, adventures in cooking, a collection of recipes for use in nursery schools, daycare centers, Head Start programs, kindergartens, and primary classrooms, compiled by Florence P. Foster, 1971. Um, to me, this looks like hamburger. Am I missing something? That's what this looks like, is hamburgers. Now, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you've guessed this from my discussing my own cooking. I actually need this kind of help with my recipes, and I appreciate the drawings and the help, the extra help on it. But isn't this just hamburgers, right? What's fancy about this? It is cute though. So I like the help, the extra help. And so the church cookbooks, a lot of people like those. Most people, when I tell I have a collection of vintage cookbooks, they're always like, I've saved all the church cookbooks or I have the handwritten recipes. I have started selling and giving off some of mine. And the thing that goes best on eBay are the boxes of handwritten recipes I have. And yeah, there I throw everything in there. The clippings, the stories people had in there. Everyone likes to look at that kind of stuff to get a sense of the people who owned them. I want to know a lot about Florence P. Foster, who wrote this one and included the drawings. Interesting salads from the 70s. Now, no different from today. And we laugh at some of the shows on the food channels or some of the YouTubes that come up with maybe overly creative salads. Well, we have to try to get people's attention to do some of the same old things in new ways. The vintage cookbooks from the past were the same thing. So they were trying to come up with salads, or in this case, making family dinners in a hurry for the working moms or the career moms. And maybe they went too far with the creativity. I don't know that orange onion salad was a success, and you can see it there on the right-hand side of the picture on the left. It has kind of an odd dressing too. So the recipe is two large onions, one medium Bermuda onion, lettuce, pimento strips, and that's it. And it has lemon honey dressing. Now, this doesn't sound that bad on its own, although lemon honey dressing on its own sounds okay, right? And there I'm going to invite you to find a lemon honey dressing. That is not this one, because this says get a third of a cup of frozen lemonade or limeade concentrate. Yeah, I don't like it. It starts out like that. A third cup of honey, salad oil, and celery seed. Maybe find a lemon honey dressing on your own. I don't know about frozen lemonade and that, but maybe lemon juice or something. But I don't know that onion. It's just onion, right? What am I missing? I suppose it's got slices of orange there, but something seems missing in that recipe. But that is the case. You do find that in some of these recipes is that they try too hard to be creative, but that's not different from today. And then this one is a favorite still. It's still sold in different bottles. Trader Joe's has a version of it. I Kraft bought it. Kraft Foods bought it. Let me go back to the original history. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we know Green Goddess is a salad dressing. It's one of the original 70s ads on it. Typically, it contains mayonnaise, sour cream, something called chervil, which I'm not familiar with, chives, anchovy, tarragon, lemon juice, and pepper. Every time I've given this show, people are like, no, I didn't eat it with anchovy or I didn't eat it with that. There's a few different versions of it. It was named for its tint, obviously. The most accepted theory regarding its origins points to the Palace Hotel in San Francisco in 1923. That's how far it goes back. When the hotel's executive chef, Philip Romer, wanted something to pay tribute to actor George Arliss and his hit play, The Green Goddess. He then concocted this dressing, which, like the play, became a hit. This is a variation of the dressing originated in France by a chef to Louis VIII. So it's got different variations. You'll find that a lot with different things. Like the Palmer House says they invented the brownie. So do a few other different places. So some of these famous things that people love have different origins, but it's fun to think of that it was named after a character in a play. So the early 70s, salad dressing maker Seven Seas produced a bottled version of this dressing. Uh, I don't know that they used all those same ingredients. Kraft Foods bought it, and it's sold in small quantities. And Trader Joe's has one simply called Goddess dressing that has lemon, garlic, and chives. That is the one that I think most people are aware of. Maybe you could put it over your slices of onion, like that previous salad, and we could call that some new sort of salad. That could be dinner in a hurry, right? Don't know how tasty that would be. Then we have pasta primavera. There's Craig Claiborne, who is the food editor for the New York Times for many years. You can still find his cookbooks at used bookstores and certainly lots of good recipes still. I equate some of his cookbooks with Julia Child's classic ones. Some wonderful foods and trends in there, legitimately wonderful, not recipes necessarily that like some of these that I'm mentioning in the cookbooks. So pasta primavera is like pasta and fresh vegetables. Sometimes meat or chicken is added, but the focus is the vegetables and all types of different pastas, traditionally used with fettuccine. And primavera means spring. So typically the spring vegetables are used. Many people say it's traced back to Le Cirque in New York, and it was made famous from a 1977 article in the New York Times by Craig Claiborne, who included a recipe for it. So the invention of the dish is contested. It's another one of those that people gave different origins to. All right. One of my all-time favorite Jello spreads in the Jello cookbooks. Yep, folks, that is shag carpeting on the left, and they have skis in the background, and the heading on that one was "Keep Fit." It is molded ham and egg salad Jello from the 1970s Joys of Jello. They were trying to show that you could use Jello not just for cocktail parties. This was the same book as that other photo, but also for your main dish. Molded ham and egg salad. There's like whole egg slices there. I'm not going to read the ingredients in here because I don't want to scare you, but apparently after a busy day of skiing, you could cozy up with some soup and your molded ham and egg salad Jello. Needless to say, this is not in your recipe packet. So on the right-hand side, there are some Jello salads. The molded salads were popular since the 50s. You had like the salmon loaf and the different ribbon loaves, and there are a lot of loaves and salad loaves that people sliced up. This is still continuing. Jello came up with turkey souffle salad that had lemon Jello, mayonnaise, lemon juice, diced cooked turkey, cucumber, celery, and chopped pimento. It doesn't sound that terrible. It's just like turkey salad instead of chicken salad. The addition of Jello is a little odd, but you have to have something to hold it together. I don't know that I want to eat turkey salad in a sliced version, but the Jello was trying to sell things as a main course, and they had different flavors of Jello in that time. They had like an Italian dressing flavored Jello. They had tomato Jello, very different from now. You don't see the molded ham and egg salad Jello or any chapters that say keep fit in the modern Jello recipes anywhere. Another of my favorite recipes from 1974, Better Homes and Gardens. And this is like an offshoot of, so well, after Hawaii joined the States, there was vintage cookbooks on wild, adding Hawaiian recipes, and very few of them did actual research into the foods that came from Hawaii. And so they all wanted to have something that was quote Hawaiian, and this one is fish sticks Polynesian. Uh, Oddly enough, I actually think kids would enjoy this one, but it's meant to look like a volcano, and it is, quote, a good use for leftover rice. This is 1974 Better Homes and Gardens. And I didn't write which one is. I think it's Meals in a Hurry, because that seems what it would be with the shows a few trends from the 70s. Leftover interest in Hawaiian recipes, making foods in a hurry, using leftovers, and also foods wheel trends. And I'm going to show the wheel in a minute too. Western trends are popular, wagon wheel, spokes of a wheel. You see that a lot. And so this one, I love the carrot curls in the middle. So rice with the fish sticks. So I think maybe families, young families would get a kick out of this one. So just something different, but fish sticks Polynesian, which has no actual connection to Polynesian, in case you were confused by that. So wheels of dinner on the upper left is definitely one that I made. I didn't have the Lynx sausages. So, I just used what I had. It was delicious though. It honestly was. It was like pancake batter and sausages. You think, oh, Amy, your recipes look so crazy. You know what? The recipes are crazy already. And do I make them worse sometimes with my shortcuts? Absolutely. They do taste really good though. So I have a lot of fun with my vintage cookbook collection. I do tend to make them worse, but yes, I do have some recipes that turn out really good, but they're not as fun to talk about. But that one was my chuck wagon that used sausages, and some of them used frankfurters. Frankfurters, huge recipe trend from the 60s and 70s. It has its own what I call genre of recipes of frankfurters. From the Better Homes and Gardens casserole cookbook, this is chili con weenie on the bottom. The caption on this one is, for a last minute supper, spoon hearty chili con weenie over toasty bun halves, garnished with frank slices and olives. So it actually doesn't look too bad, right? It looks like a nice Super Bowl recipe. It looks like something I could use for that. It's garnished with frankfurters, which is not a phrase we see in modern food stuff, but it looks pretty tasty. A nice chili. It looks like it's something that could be used as a dip. The one on the top though is delicious. That was like a brunch thing. It would, probably be better to serve separate pancakes and sausages instead of making it the way I did all in one. But the wheel trend was the thing there to take from that one, and also Frankfurter art. Sundays at home, and this is one of my card collection. These were whole cards from McCall's uh, Family Recipes in 1973. This is Sundays at Home for the Children's Sunday Supper. So this is meant to be a main dish for children, and it says best served with whipped cream or vanilla ice cream and hot cocoa. Yeah, that's my kind of main dish for sure. But it looks like apple pie is what it pretty much is. It has it's like all in one dish. It's an apple pie without a crust is what it is. So the children's recipes, we see more family recipes, as I've mentioned, recipes in a hurry, and that was one of them. This one is going to be in your packet. This is from 1973 Family Dinners in a Hurry. Sweet potatoes with banana, and this is another one they call a main dish. I would call it dessert. Not sure we can get vacuum packed sweet potatoes now, maybe from the can. That's how I would refer to that. This actually looks like a version of sweet potatoes I make at Thanksgiving, although do I do it in a casserole? It does look like it would be delicious. Certainly you could make it in different, you could adapt it some for now. So today's version of Dinner in a Hurry certainly has changed from 40 years ago. Uh, not a main dish in my mind. Anyway, I don't, my boys maybe would have this as a snack. And by boys, my boys are 18 and 23. So I don't know that we can call them boys, but this would be like a snack for them. That would not be a main dish, but I do include that one. All right. So a whole genre of cherry pie recipes, and it seems to improve every single dish. From 1974, Better Homes and Gardens oven meals. This is touted as a colorful, low-cost main dish. Uh, it seems odd, but think about like Coca-Cola chicken and stuff. I bet this is pretty good. I bet it's flavorful. So ready to cook broiler fryer chicken cut up. It's got flour, salt, paprika, pepper, 1 can of cherry pie filling, dry white wine, brown sugar, and salt. I bet it's good. I bet it's caramelized chicken, nutmeg, allspice, and cloves. And you think, well, Amy, why didn't you make this one? I don't think any of us want to see that picture. But different way of doing it. So we see all kinds of cherry pie recipes, different ways of doing things. And I've got another one here. Same thing. It's like the cherry cola pot roast in a crock pot. And that one is modern. I was comparing the two of them. The solo company recipes are a little bit more modern. So I was comparing the two. So the cherry pie recipe and cherry Coca-Cola, and that one put cherries in it also. So not that much different. Same kind of thing. The caramelized, that one also uses cherry liqueur, which I was not familiar with, but certainly the cherry pie filling could be used in different ways. It's a different fun way to do that. Okay. Here's another recipe. This one, the 70s. I found it in, and this is one of my all-time favorite cookbooks for my collection. This is the Duncan Hines Bake Shop in a book. They adapted cake mixes. Really popular trend now to find quick ways to make fancier cakes out of a cake mix. A lot faster and easier, and it took the traditional Della Robbia cake from the 70s and it made it with a cake mix from 1979. And they took the cake mix, and it is made in an angel food cake pan, which is a little harder to manage. And you do have to be careful that it is well greased and floured. But it added vanilla, grated lemon peel, lemon juice, and some food coloring, along with allspice and a little bit of cherry liqueur. So here we see it again. But I bet that's delicious in that cake. And I do love the glaze and the decorated food on top. Certainly wouldn't be hard to add those things now. And it certainly dresses up the cake and makes it look very elegant. And that one is refrigerated to get it to stay like that on the top. I don't know that I could get it to look that elegant on top. Maybe if I don't know how. I might have to use toothpicks to get mine to stay like that, but it certainly looks very pretty. I have gotten many recipes to work successfully with that bake shop in a book. Here's where we start getting into the crepes era. We see a lot of chicken salad, a lot of things stacked. And this is Better Homes and Gardens Make Ahead Cookbook. The odd red triangles are jellied cranberry sauce, in case you were wondering. And I was wondering the first time I opened this, but this might not look the most appetizing. Maybe it does to you, but I bet it is quite good. It is chicken salad, pancakes, well, okay, packaged cheese sauce mix. That is where it maybe loses some of you. But the pancakes and the chicken salad, some of those flavors might work together. And also, you might want to skip the jellied cheese sauce. I don't know that we need to make that a three-dimensional dinner, but some of those flavors might work well together. So again, we're going to take some of the things from these old recipes and change them to what would work for you. And it advises using sour cream and things like that. I think this might work with potato pancakes. It might work with different variations that were split, and it calls this the poor man's crepes. When you're using 20 to 25 ingredients, that is no longer the poor man's crepes in my mind. And if it takes all these hours to make, certainly a lot of time to do that. It's supposed to be served at luncheons or for a special meal with the I can't imagine my serving that, but all right. There's another Amy special of what happened when I made dessert crepes. Now they were delicious before you wonder about who would want to eat those. They were quite good. So 1976 crepes cookbook. I bought this at an antique mall and the cashier said, I brought that one in. Good luck with them. I couldn't get any to work. And I thought, oh, she doesn't know who she's dealing with. All of my recipes look bad and crazy. All of mine fail. I just have so much fun trying all the things. It doesn't matter that they don't turn out perfectly. It's a lot more fun to talk about. They were delicious. So my younger son is excellent at making crepes. They turn out perfectly when he does it. So I just let him make the crepe part and I help with the fillings. So one of the things the cookbooks is the ones on the right there are chocolate peanut butter and they are wrapped around a banana. It was delicious. They were amazing with the sauce. The ones on the left were called Christmas crepes, and I think I put that recipe in your packet. You can see those are quite good, and they suggest serving them with apricot jam, 1 cup whipping cream. Obviously, that is a heart stopper, and people avoid putting that stuff in now for good reason. And you don't need to. It's meant to go on top. You can use regular crepe recipe. It's a lot of basic stuff. You can add chocolate or not. Do variations on these. I like on the cover there that they made like they turned the crepes into little bowls. stuff, they have different ways of doing it. Not just the things where you like flip them in the pan or you don't need a special crepe pan. You can tell I had trouble and they still turned out okay. All right, quiche and more economical dishes. It was popular to put bread around the outside of the dishes. I see that a lot in the 70s. I'm gonna grab some water. I'm starting to get the hiccups. 1971, good food on a budget. It says cheesy egg bake provides the one-step cooking at its finest. The Swiss cheese and chicken sauced eggs bake as a ring of French bread slices toast. Yes, okay. Parsley is sprinkled on top before serving this brunch treasure. I don't know what chicken sauced eggs are. It must, oh, because it's got condensed cream of chicken soup, and that is the Midwest staple, especially in the church cookbooks. I use it. It's delicious in a lot of recipes. I use it in my crock pot all the time. I don't know about cooking the bread right up in with the eggs. There's a reason we don't see that anymore because a lot of times the way the eggs are cooked in the vintage cookbooks is not healthy. So maybe do that separately. I don't know that it looks all that great anymore. Serving it separately is fine. But a lot of fun quiche dishes in these old cookbooks, and they're coming back. We certainly see that at a lot of brunches now. Fun ways to make food in a nice hearty meal, especially in the cold months. And we also see different versions. I have the 1978 Chun King recipe cookbook, and it suggested a quiche with a frozen broccoli, diced chicken, Swiss cheese, um, water chestnuts, and in a pastry shell with it had brushed egg whites. So different variations, and that one certainly sounded good. All right, stuffed beef rounds. Okay, from from the Better Homes and Gardens Blender Cookbook. Yeah, okay, that does not sound appetizing, but again, this is a variation on hamburger. It's a different way to do it. It actually sounds delicious, although, you might not want to make it in your blender. From 1971, and think about it, they were probably trying to sell blenders. So they were trying to come up with recipes to use in the blender, even if it didn't make sense. I actually have a lovely avocado blender that was my mother's. So this is stuffed beef rounds and it rolled up foods. So think of the wheel and the spokes, also rolled up foods were big. And the beef is held together with stuffing, cheese, and breads. It's like hamburgers, again, and meatloaves. So not that much different. But again, it was delicious and served with, I didn't list what was in the sauce, and there's probably a good reason for that. So we will leave it to our imagination, just some sort of hamburger served in a different way. Probably trying to get more creative to make some of the same old ingredients for on a budget for people and something different to serve. And of course, this is the era of Hamburger Helper. And here's when it came out. Look at that coupon, 7 cents off. Woo! Very different. And the varieties they had there back then were certainly different. Now they have a lot more different ones. So this was introduced in 1971 in response to a meat shortage and escalating meat prices. The types have changed now. It was meant to be for comfort foods. The initial flavors reflected foods familiar to most Americans, and they also had some that were called Italian, cheesy, and Mexican back then. I know they have a variety of them now. It was so impactful that the Food Network listed it as number 3 of one of the top 5 food fads of the 1970s. It is what I think people think of most when they talk about food out of a box. I don't know that they have potato stroganoff anymore. I'm looking at that one, but 7 cents off on your purchase. I don't know that you want to make it every day of the week. It's listed there. All right, so I did find some fancier recipes, especially this is a New Year's from Southern Living Celebrations, my Southern Living Celebrations collection. There's multiple volumes of it. It's got every holiday you can ever imagine, and many you're never going to celebrate. It's just so much fun to see all their different menus. They have a crab meat mold, and that is in the recipe packet. It uses, it's a champagne and crab meat mold. Got cream cheese, mayonnaise, chives, parsley, paprika. I think you serve it with the champagne because I don't see it in here. Cucumber, rye bread, and then it sounds delicious to serve on New Year's Eve or other occasions. It does suggest a whole New Year's Eve buffet of crab meat mold, Danish meatballs, cucumber ring canapes, marinated mushrooms, fresh fruit, cheese dates, something called Shrewsbury cakes, hot rum punch, and champagne. That actually sounds like a pretty good party, and not as overly elaborate as some of the other ones that we hear. So I put the crab meat mold in your packet because that sounded like a good one for the 70s and more realistic. And we do see Swedish meatballs recipes quite often and smorgasbord recipes from this era, and that is holdover from the 60s still. What this recipe is not in your packet because that is a heck of a lot of ingredients and maybe not realistic. That is looks very expensive to put together. You don't need to have all that in there. There are better Swedish meatballs recipes, and if you don't know one, I bet the library can help you find some good ones. I bet there's even books or things on their website that can help you find good ones. And certainly you can cut down on the calories in that one too if you want to. And this one came from Lost and Vintage Recipes, which is a great cookbook if you're ever looking for one. This is my favorite meatballs recipe and my family's favorite and one of my all-time favorite vintage recipes. And every time I talk about this one, someone in someone's family knows how to make this one. I actually make it with frozen meatballs in my crock pot. I use a jar of grape jelly and a jar of chili sauce. Those literally are my measurements, and I heat them in the crock pot with a bunch of, and literally, I fill the crock pot with the frozen meatballs until the sauce is covering them. So grape jelly and chili sauce, and that's it. And frozen meatballs. It is delicious. That sweet and salty works. Now, it used to be in the cookbooks, they suggested doing this with glazed cocktail franks. You can make this however you want. It's all it is. It's grape jelly, and I bet you know somebody who's made this at a party, grape jelly and chili sauce. You wouldn't think that goes together, but it does. So very popular to cook things at the table, hibachis at the table, hot plates at the table. This doesn't seem like it would be all the same as the one on the right. This is big. Again, people making things at their table. Every time I go into Kohl's or one of those places, I am fascinated at all the appliances to make things at the table again. The hot pot is popular, the fondue, anything by the brand Dish, cooking little foods, not always at the table, but also this is very popular. So combination of, it says exotic, sophisticated, and intimate, cooking foods at the table. It says there's something appealing about the sight of a flame flickering under a bubbling pot or a handsome chafing dish. I don't know that we want to see a flame flickering indoors on your table, but certainly something plugged in on your table might be fun and cozy and a good conversation starter. Something fun to do in a group. From Betty Crocker's Dinner Parties, a contemporary guide to easy entertaining. And it says dishes that call for extra elbow room. Keep in mind, don't crowd the table. And be sure, especially with fondues, that both the pot and the dips are within easy reach of everyone. You might take the precaution of using an easily laundered or wipe off cloth. That way, if a few splatters occurred, no one is embarrassed. Remember, this kind of dinner is not meant to be eaten in a hurry, that self service take time, and that cooking is a major part of the evening's entertainment. That was good advice, especially the part about splatters. And I won't say how I know that. Okay. The one on the left is modern, a s'mores maker, and I won that at some, and I think it was a library event, and I ended up using it at some library team thing. And then the one on the right are vintage, but some of these are coming back, obviously with safer versions in mind. Look at that. How many of you had things like that or had family members who had things like that? And we see versions of these now. And why do we need these? Some of them are fun. So anyway. Okay, hot pot restaurants are big. I had so much fun. I won at the baseball game. I won ticket discount things to a hot pot restaurant. It was amazing. So I have a cookbook that was all hot pot. It was Better Homes and Gardens fondue hot pot and chafing dish, and it had hot pot recipes. This is coming back. And why? Because you can make some healthy things this way. I don't have a hot pot. They have different ways to do it. You don't necessarily have to buy a new thing for your kitchen, but different ways to do it. You can do chicken breasts, you can do shrimp, you can do vegetables, you can make them in chicken broth. It doesn't have to be unhealthy. It does say, the old cookbooks say, make in a well ventilated heating area. Yeah, there's safer ways to do it now. but certainly a fun and delicious. And now you can do a healthier way to do this. It's fun to see this trend coming back. Don't see this trend as much coming back. My late husband would never let me try this one at home, and there's probably a good reason for that since you've seen my other cooking adventures. So, chafing dish cherries jubilee, very popular in the 60s. And this is where I think we see some of the cherry recipes that carried over into the 70s. This is what it looked like and the recipes and the cookbooks. And this particular cookbook with the hot pot, the chafing dish, and the fondue suggested a can of cherries, sugar, cornstarch, brandy, and vanilla ice cream. I remember fondly that at the reference desk, I was always sent people with the weird food questions, and it was amazing how many of them I could do from my memory, especially how people could get their cakes and their different dishes to light up. And I always knew how to do it. So I was like, well, you could put a brandy in here, or you could soak your raisins there and light that up. And they're like, don't you have to look it up? And I was like, no, I know how to do that. Fun with fondue. Tested these out of my teen advisory group for years. So from 1970, Gourmet International's The Fine Art of Fondue, Chinese Wok and Chafing Dish Cooking. This is another one of those I had. So they came up with variations of fondue. Keep in mind, they're trying to sell the appliances. So they're trying to get creative. So this is beyond your usual cheese and chocolate fondues, which is what most of us like, or maybe even the basic meat in the oils. So some of these are terrible. I made the one on the right for a teen advisory thing, and they never stopped talking about it, how I poisoned them all and stuff. It wasn't that bad. It did look like Pepto-Bismol, but it wasn't that bad. It tasted good, but they never stopped talking about it. I ran into one of them at a ball game. I'm going to say a few months ago, and they still referred to holiday parties where I made them eat weird vintage fondues. I pretended I didn't remember what they were talking about. So 1974, this was Pink Squirrel Fondue. That was the name of it. Yes, that one was pretty memorable. So it was marshmallow cream. That one, the recipe suggested alcohol. Obviously, I didn't do that with the teen advisory board. It's lemon juice. I think it had some sort of strawberry in there. I can't remember. I think I just dyed it pink. I probably put some sort of mint in there for the holidays or some strawberry flavoring. It wasn't as bad as they said, and they had a fun party. The one on the left is kind of interesting. It's a version of kolaches. So you're supposed to make the dough and dip them in the hot oil and cook them for fondue. It's kind of a fun concept, and I wonder how well it would work. And then you have then you dip them in various dips or things. So might be fun to try in oil. It suggested doing it with kids, which I would not do with hot oil, but something a little different. And the cookbook suggests makes the little tarts in there and little fruit pies. So something fun to try with fondue. Maybe don't do the pink squirrel, or at least don't dye it extra pink or whatever I did. But it wasn't that bad. It was mint. All right, poke cake, stripe it rich. This is when it originated in the 70s. Really came into its own 1977. This is another one of those where everybody tells me their version of it. So the really came out, you saw it a lot with the red, white, and blue in 76. And then it really took off in 77. The fruit ones never become as popular. The pudding ones are the most popular. So you use a wooden dowel rod or something to poke holes in the cake. You either bake it with jello or pudding in it, or you put it in on top while it's cooling. Different ways to do it. I know that sounds crazy. Maybe look it up and find the version that works best for you. The pudding ones are the most popular. Honestly, I think it's because the fruit ones taste strange sometimes, especially when you combine different fruit flavors. Looks beautiful. You only see it when you slice into the cake, though. That might be another reason. But the pudding ones, it adds moisture. Obviously, it's going to be much more delicious. It goes by different names in different decades. And then there's pudding in a cloud, one of my favorite pamphlet cookbooks, and the pudding sampler because and it actually was photos of people's embroidery. So this is pudding in a cloud, which was very popular. It uses cello pudding and pie filling and bird's eye Cool Whip, and it was just two different flavors in a dish. And pretty simple. And the other one used graham crackers, and then there was a coffee flavored one. Just different fun ways to serve it. Again, they were trying to make jello and jello pudding more elegant. I only have a few more to go here. Some different fun trends from the 70s. I know I have a lot, and I appreciate you guys listening to some of these. I hope you found some that you might want to try. So, wacky cake, that's what we called it in the 70s. Before that, in the Depression era, it was one egg cake. This one shows up in a lot of eras where money is tight. You make it in one bowl, It uses fewer ingredients. You see different versions of it. This one, and I believe I put this one in your recipe packet, uses more ingredients. The idea is that you do it all in one. You make some wells in the dry ingredients, you mix it all up together. So NPR did an article on the wacky cake, and it said, wacky cake, war cake, Joe cake, crazy cake. What's in a name? A cake by any other name would not taste as sweet, would not have this cake's history. Easy one-pan chocolate cake would be an appropriate name because it's incredibly simple to make, mixed, baked, and served from the same pan. So it showed up in all kinds of variations going back to war times. Uh, Easy to make, especially during rationing times. uh, One egg, obviously this makes sense that this one comes up. You can add to it, you can do different things from it. It's easy to see why this one is popular at different times. You can look it up and find all kinds of fun variations on it. One of my favorite trends from the 70s is carrot cake. And we know that this particular photo is from the 70s because everything is orange in it. And I like how they matched even the trailer with this one. So carrot cake and spice cake. And of course, the history of this goes all the way back to when they discovered spices. There's some variation of spice cake in the carrots. And the Food Network said carrot cake was one of the biggest fads of the 70s. And oddly enough, it became so popular in the 70s. And I found multiple sources said this from hospital cafeterias, that it was big in hospital cafeterias in the UK, that the carrot cake, and then people started making it and doing it at home. I had people calling me at the reference desk and asking easy versions of carrot cake. It's hard to find easy versions of it because it uses so many different spices and ingredients. You certainly can do cake mix, cake, spice cake, and add ingredients to it to change it. See if you really love carrot cake, see if you can find a version to make it that's not that hard. From the spice cake that's shown there, and the one it's on the left by the bright orange mug, it's from the 1969 Pillsbury's Bake Off Cake Cookbook, and that is just a regular spice cake. But they another reason that this carrot cake shows up being popular at different trends. In the 70s, it became popular from the cafeterias, but it has shown up at other times because carrots were used as a sweetener during rationing. So it's interesting that this one and beets also were used as rationing, but we don't see beets becoming popular for obvious reasons. But carrot cake looks elegant, especially with cream cheese frosting. It's popular with a lot of people. So different trends, you'll see it pop up at different times. And I have given this talk in person sometimes. I used to serve mini carrot cakes because you could find them wrapped. It's not that easy to make though, just because it has a lot of ingredients. We also, during this time, so I talked about a few cakes that were made with a few ingredients. We also see luscious, elaborate ones. And here's recipes for entertaining. This reminds me of the grasshopper cake. Super hard for no good reason. And this one is recipes for entertaining. It uses the sifted cake flour. We know that because it's so tall. And again, it cuts it's made in the tube cake pan and it's cut in third. Much easier to do this as two layers. It uses pudding in the middle layer, which is a lot of fun and adds some decadence and depth and moisture to the cake. And it suggests also you could do it with custard. You can do confectioner's sugar or chocolate icing. I like how they decorated it with toothpicks. That's add kind of fun layer to it. Certainly that would be fun at Halloween too, that particular look. And it's pretty simple if you look at it. It does use a lot of ingredients, but I bet that one is delicious. This is refrigerator cake. This is one I've made in many variations. They've made it more elegant in this 1976 version. It's made with Jello pudding. This one, the one in the cookbook that I have mentioned there, that is not a picture of it. That is my own version of the red, white, blue one that I've made recently. The one in the 1976 cookbook uses vanilla pudding, blueberry filling, and vanilla wafers. If you make this and refrigerate it overnight, the vanilla wafers become soft and you have kind of like a rich dessert cake. And I always make it in the bread pan because it is so rich and people just want a small serving of it. You don't have to make it with eggs. You can just do it with pudding and different fillings and cookies. And for St. Patrick's Day, I do it with like Oreos with mint filling. So different ways to do it. You don't have to do it with mince. Again, these 70s cookbooks were trying to make it a little fancier, different ways to do it. And one more classic 70s dessert is lemon bars. every single church cookbook from that era has a different way to do lemon bars. I've seen them with coconut, without. You do find these in the bake-offs, cookbooks from that era too. Lots of competition ones have lemon bars. I like them all. Different versions. Of course, I love coconut. This is from Solo's World of Desserts and Delicacies. I don't know that everybody loves coconut. There's definitely different ways to do it. Some just like confectioner's sugar on top. If you are into lemon bars, lots of fun variations to do these now. I've seen different flavors of them, not necessarily lemon, but the 70s is really when those came into their own. And I've got one more. I do have one more. So apples. Also, we showed the apple pie children's supposed dessert dinner thing and apple desserts, which is going to lead into my fall festival. I'm going to talk a lot about apples at my fall talk in September. And I also had, and I think it's in your packet, the apple peanut butter fudge recipes. So we start to see a ton of apple recipes, and they show up in family dinners in a hurry and home tested menus because it was something that people of all ages liked. All right, and I will open up the chat. And I said, what were your funky favorites from the 70s? So I think I will, let's see, how do I do this? I'm gonna stop sharing and I will look at the chat. Oh, great. Oh, Mary Marshall, who I know. Let's love the grape jelly meatballs. Mary, thanks for coming. So they are now vegetarians and make them with plant-based meatballs. Excellent. Yes, and there's vegetarian chilies. And I have the vintage warmer pictured there, right? We have the vintage table things. All right. What other comments do we have here? Thank you all so much for commenting. Oh, Rachel, thanks so much for putting a link to the fall festivals.
Oh,
Anybody
you're
else?
welcome.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else want to put or mention recipes, or what was there a recipe? I know I went through a lot of recipes. I will do a couple fewer slides at the fall talk because I think I ran over a little bit on that one.
Yep. I don't see any more questions in the chat yet, but we'll give it a few more minutes. All looking at all those recipes myself, I am reminded of my mom's old Betty Crocker cookbook, which is still, we still use it today for some of the bread recipes.
Right?
So,
The fall is one of my favorite talks. So it's pumpkin, maple, apple, uh, Halloween recipes, and I go into Thanksgiving with some of the favorite Thanksgiving recipes on that one. So I'm going to have a lot of fun with that one. There are some really humorous Halloween recipes in the vintage cookbooks, as you can imagine. I enjoy Watergate salad, make it occasionally. Yes, right? That one never gets old. Uh, Mary, yes, Rachel's making it as a recording for a week, I believe. Is that correct, Rachel? That was your
yes.
plan? Yeah,
Mhm.
it is okay with me that the recording. I hate listening to myself, obviously, as a recording, but you can, other people can. I just have a lot of fun. You can tell this. I have trouble limiting the funny things that I like to talk about from the cookbooks. There's some valuable nugget in each of those crazy recipes. Even like apple fudge, who would think that's a thing, but it's very moist. I mean, it's funny, the different. And I look at those appliances that don't look safe, and you still see variations of them at Kohl's. Things you think no one would need are still popular. I always think, what are my boys going to be talking about in 10 years? I mean, what's the next thing from the air fryer?
Yes. Okay. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I want to thank first Amy, wonderful program.
Thank
And I
you.
also want to thank our audience for joining us tonight. And I will turn it back over to Amy for closing comments.
Thank you all so much for coming. I hope that didn't scare you off from trying to make some of those recipes. The ones in the packet should be normal ones. I usually put one or two funny ones in the packet, but mostly normal. And some of them are from modern sites, so they should be safe, fun ingredients to make. And I hope you all enjoy them. Thank you all for spending time with me. And I hope I see you at the Fall Flavors program. Thanks, Rachel, for having me come tonight.
Well, thank you all again, and good night.